as a chapter. That is something we need to hang on. Our counties have a lot of laws, have a lot of policies, have a lot of programs going on, but they must be engaging public. And there's a definition in the Constitution that says how we will engage our public. It is not just meeting, you call people, give them sodas and leave. No, it is actual participation, and there's a very big opportunity for us for that. Ladies and gentlemen, those are my submission and my reflections. And I believe this chapter will go places. I'm ready to be involved when I win my seat as a local leader, but as well as a community-led champion. I'm more than willing to be part of this chapter. Thank you very much. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Peter. I mean, you've really, painted a very clear picture on why a CLD is the movement is timely, and the amount of work that we have to do to make sure that community-led interventions are deepened even at the grassroots level. And of course, all the best in your quest for that position you're pursuing. I think with that, I think I would now like to pass it over to John Coonrod. John Coonrod, for those who are joining us for the first time, he is the Executive Vice President at the Hunger Project, and is also a co-founder of the MCLD. John, over to you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Maybe you can stop sharing your screen because I'm going to share mine in a moment.
Oh, great, right away.
So it's so great to see everybody again. The world has so tremendously changed since a number of us were together in January of 2019. It seems like 100 years ago or a week ago. I'm not quite sure. So Steve has asked me to give, for those who are joining the first time, a brief overview of the movement, and also for all of us an update on what's been happening around the world in the movement over the last 2.5 years. So I'm going to share my screen here. I hope you're seeing this one, yes?
Yes, we are seeing that.
Good, okay. So here we were 2.5 years ago, the governor of McWaney County kicking off this movement. It was just, many of you were there. It was just a tremendous statement of solidarity for people from government, from people, civil society, from the bilaterals committed to the success of really fully implementing both the spirit and word of the new Kenyan Constitution and what that could mean. We heard from a chief, in fact, the progress that had been made in Turkana under this new constitution that set up county government. One of the things that the world rallied around in 2015, as the world was working on developing the Sustainable Development Goals, we had this theme, the world we want. And one of the things that we've really discovered during COVID times is that a world where everyone has full and equal access to public services, good access to healthcare, this is not just the world we want, this is really the world we need. And so our role in the movement for community-led development during COVID times has become more important than ever. The goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, as you know, were set on September 25th in New York, and on that 2015, and on that day, Pope Francis also spoke, and he said, this is all well and good for you people to create these goals and targets, but you have to keep foremost in mind, what will this really mean for people living in poverty who are working to meet their own basic needs, who are struggling to carve out a livelihood for their families, in conditions of extreme poverty. And so this, taking the Sustainable Development Goals as an expression of the rights and aspirations of a young woman like this, is what this movement is about. We define CLD as the process of working together to create and achieve locally owned visions and goals. It works to achieve systemic change rather than just short-term projects. We set 5 goals for the movement: youth and agency for women, youth, and marginalized groups; adequate community finance, at least 20% share of the public budget, which is enshrined in law in Kenya, but nowhere else on the continent of Africa is that level of public resources at local hands. Good local governance, by which we mean participation, as Peter was just mentioning, transparency, effectiveness, accountability, quality public services, and resilience. And in fact, at our launching, we heard a wonderful story. You can see it in the recording, I think, of how the people of Turkana, who the international community had always treated only as herders, really wanted to farm as part of their resilience. And so they worked with World Food Program to actually establish farmland as well as pasture land. The real work of the movement happens in country chapters. The ones in green are the countries where chapters have been launched. The ones in orange are ones where people are participating and looking at forming national chapters. So that has grown quite a bit since the Kenya chapter was launched. We also have 72 international NGOs who can give, when I first visited Kenya in for the preparations for the launch, everybody said, please lean on these organizations that are working in Kenya to give us the green light to devote some of our time and energy to this movement. We also have a global secretariat. Anne, who you met earlier, and I work globally, and really works a lot with the regional coordinators and the country chapters to really achieve their own strategy and working together for collective impact. Meanwhile, another of our colleagues are working through global working groups to really compile the evidence and the lessons learned and to support country chapters in creating grants for collective impact. This is our theory of change. I don't think this existed when we launched the movement in 2019 in Kenya. But basically, each chapter forms its own agenda, sets its own goals, and stays in constant communication. And forms 2 kinds of partnerships. One, to really expand the scale of facilitating community-led development, because given so many forces that work against community-led development, it really does take facilitation to mobilize communities to become healthy, productive, resilient, and self-reliant. Meanwhile, forming advocacy partnerships to really ensure that the laws and budgets are properly organized to support community-led development. And once there are nationwide programs of community-led development, that, we believe, is the only way to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And then there are countries that have taken this to scale, such as Indonesia, where it starts with some civil society groups demonstrating how community-led development can be effective. The government then joining in at sort of an intermediate level and learning how to support that. and then taking it to national scale. In the case of Indonesia, for example, it started as an $80 million project, and then it turned into an annual $7 billion line item in the national budget for community-led development. Now, what the movement has been doing since 2019 is that we have a research and evaluation working groups. They conducted a study across 173 CLD programs, and they also developed tools for assessing community-led development. And these are on the MCLD website. There's been a lot of interest in learning how to use these tools for both for assessing local programs, assessing just how community-led are the community-led development programs. We've also had a very active COVID working group. We've had calls every month since March of 2020 to really look at how can we adapt our programming during COVID times. We have our mcld.org website with all of these resources, with recordings from our meetings, a huge number of resources now that hopefully will be useful to you. We also have established a monthly newsletter. In addition to the email group that I hope you're all a part of now, the Kenya at mcld.groups.io, we also have a larger list of about 6,000 practitioners and policymakers so that we can update our messages, our lessons learned with these policymakers. Anyone can go to mcld.org and subscribe to that newsletter. So I hope everyone you know will subscribe to that newsletter so that we can keep them updated on this whole Shift the Power movement. As I mentioned, there are lots of examples now of countries that have devolved their resources, such as Kenya. South Korea, for example, attributes all their great wealth, since they have no natural resources, to their successful community-led development programming of the 70s. So this is still an uphill battle. As Peter mentioned, I was really impressed by the mention of having to go to court to ensure some of these things move forward. But really, this is an opportunity for each of us who are committed to people's empowerment, who are committed to human rights, to bring our leadership and our creativity to this. It seems to be making progress. We see the World Bank increasing their funding for this kind of work. We've seen USAID begin to really shift their resources to locally led development. So if we keep pushing this rock up the hill, I think we will achieve tremendous progress. So with that, I will stop sharing slides, and I think we have a few moments left for discussion.
Right. Thank you very much, John, for that great presentation. And I'm sure that now, especially those who are joining us for the first time, you have a fair understanding of what MCLD is all about and what we stand for as a movement. And I know maybe you could be having some questions that you would like to pass to John regarding the presentation. I know we will have a Q&A session later on, but if you feel like you have something to share, a comment, suggestion, or question to ask, please, I think we can allow 2 or 3 questions.
Well, let me mention one more thing then. One of the reasons I have been so wildly, passionately committed to the Kenya chapter is that I really do think that Kenya's constitution and the devolution of resources can be a beacon of hope for all of Africa. I know that there have been before the pandemic, there were other governments who visited Kenya. I know Daisy as our East Africa regional coordinator, and Anne as a coach to all the chapters, really point to Kenya. So in addition to everything you want to achieve in your country, I really point to your work and your constitution and your county government system as a model that I hope that we can influence more and more countries to follow. Okay, Steve, well, I guess on with your agenda.
Thank you very much. I know maybe they're still digesting, and when we get to the Q&A session, we will have a few questions maybe and comments coming. So right now, based on the agenda, let me just share my screen. And we're actually glad that we could have Daisy, Lindsay, and Anne join us as well. Right, so I'm going to be just updating us about what we've been up to since the beginning of June. You know, we have been trying to mobilize, you know, existing partners, and also looking for or reaching out to new members who are also passionate and interested about the movement. And I'm so excited that we've been able to, or some of those organizations have been able to join us today. I know there's some who were willing to really be with us here today, but maybe due to other reasons, they've not been able to make it. Some have sent their apologies, and we hope to have them in our subsequent meetings. We've also been able to, you know, have some talks with the Council of Governors. I don't know whether Rosemary is here from the COG, because as you all know, the COG is a very critical stakeholder when it comes to, you know, when it comes to deepening CLD, as it were. They are in touch with people at the grassroots, and so they are a very important ally when it comes to attaining some of these objectives and goals that we have as a movement. And so I know that just like Peter said, we have a lot at stake that we need to focus on as a movement. And this is just the beginning. Today's meeting was basically to just get to jumpstart our efforts and just see how best we can refocus our attention on some of the issues that are affecting our people here in the country. And having said that, I also thought that maybe we could agree on the structure of our monthly meetings. Our suggestion was that we be holding our meetings the last Thursdays of every month. I don't know whether that is okay with the rest of the members. Maybe you could just, if you have a dissenting opinion, you could share it in the chat box. But we are thinking of holding such monthly meetings so that we are able to meet and share insights and ideas on how best we can keep going as a movement. And during those meetings, maybe some of the issues that we get to discuss are like what Peter mentioned, the Kenyan budget. I mean, how does that impact our lives? How does it impact our work as organizations or as community leaders? How does that impact our work. So we will be discussing topical issues affecting us, including COVID-19. How is COVID-19 impacting our work, impacting our lives, and what are some of the lessons that we are learning at an individual capacity as organizations that we can share with the rest of partners, so that we are able to learn and adapt together, and empower our community as we move along. Another thing that I needed to mention is, I know those who've been part of the movement, I know, we had some committees that or working groups that we had. And we're also looking at maybe in the near future, having members who are willing, the new members or the old members who are willing to be part of some of those committees. I think that would be really great. Again, it's just volunteerism, and we hope that with the passion that you have for community development, you wouldn't really mind to share your knowledge and expertise in making certain that we are able to progress and continue empowering our communities, as it were. So some of those committees or working groups, I think I'll be sharing with us at some point, and see which one you feel is ideal for you to participate in going forward. And of course, we will also be sharing ideas, on how best, like I said, we can strengthen the charter. It's about learning and adapting, as it were. Whatever we are doing here is not really cast on stones, So we are really looking forward to that kind of engagement going forward. And just want to say thank you all for really finding time to be with us here. And it's really exciting to see that we are able to now, jumpstart our efforts and make this movement really vibrant and cause positive change and impact in the lives of the people that we seek to empower or work with to find solutions to challenges that we face in the country. I think with that, I would like to pass it over to Nancy Waweru. Nancy Waweru is from the Vijana Amani Pamoja. They've been doing some amazing work in terms of youth empowerment. And she's been so passionate about MCLD, and we are glad that Nancy, you could join us. Over to you, Nancy.
Yeah. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Steve. Yeah, I strongly believe in shifting power to local and grassroots entities to drive change in our respective communities. So we just go direct to questions. I can see we have a couple of questions that are streaming in. Susan from KCDF, she's asking, how do we plan, as a movement in working with other like-minded movements?
Well, Nancy, I can comment on that globally if you want. Let me so there are a lot of them, and KCDF is a good example of the part of the Global Fund for Community Foundations that exists. In fact, on the website, we have a list of other organizations and networks that we are either in regular or sometimes constant touch with. And so I know that I personally try to get regular calls with Jenny, who coordinates that movement. And we have spoken on each other's calls and meetings because all of these networks have a slightly different focus, so we can learn from them. We have a monthly global call on the last Wednesday of every month. I hope as many of you can attend it as possible. And we usually have guest speakers from these other networks who are speaking. This coming, let's see, we'll stop sharing. So this coming week on the 30th, we're having speakers from us, from Peace Direct, which is a network on community-led peace building, and an organization as well, to really look at this triple nexus of peace, relief, and development. So that's one way we do it. And then I'm sure you all can come up with very good ways, because particularly we had a very good session on community philanthropy recently, globally. There's a recording on the web. So I do think, you know, Jenny, who started the Global Fund for Community Foundations, she always talks about the ecosystem of development and how all of these factors come into play, whether it's community philanthropy or community engagement in the political system or accountability systems. All of this has to come together to ensure people's rights.
Okay, thank you very much, John, and thank you, Susan, for that question.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Thank you for mentioning at the global level, and it's good that you're working with other movements and networks at the global level. So my question, I guess, was a bit more on the our country-specific sort of approach, and I guess maybe I could just take it back a little bit and sort of introduce myself. And why I'm asking this is because part of the work that we're doing in KCDF, I have two projects under my, I'm the Director for Governance and Philanthropy and Knowledge Management. I recently joined KCDF 3 months ago, and we're setting up two programs. One is actually with Global Fund together with Jenny, where it's a 5-year program we're doing it in 8 countries, and KCDF is leading a work stream on community-led development, where we're calling it community philanthropy. And one of our approaches is working with communities of practice, and just being in this space, I'm seeing that a place where there's a point of convergence between this work and the work that we're doing. And we've always really tried to push against working in different silos, yet we're pushing for the same agenda. So that is an area where I'm thinking it's something we can advance together, because you're working through communities of practice. That model of the technical working groups and looking at the work that we're doing, how then can we explore working much closer with members of, I think, this movement. I've not been part of the movement, and I'm really just learning about it. And I'm sure you interacted with KCDF before with my counterparts, but just sitting through and listening to your presentation, I see a lot of points of working together, at least for the next 5 years. And there's also another work stream, a different, again, project that I'm also working on building community foundations. So building more KCDFs. So it's a program that we are also working with Mott Foundation. So far, we've identified several organizations that we already started working with, but we're still in that space of identifying more either groups, registered organizations, or organizations that are not even registered yet, but will be based on the community foundation tenets. So if you're interested, also please reach out. I will put my details there, and we can continue the conversation. But indeed, I would love to know how best to engage and put the two efforts together so that we don't have different sort of silos of working.
Okay, thank you very much, Susan, and welcome on board. We've actually, as an organization, we've interacted with KCDF. We've partnered in various projects here. So I don't know if John Conrad would want to react to Susan's comment.
Well, I think there's so much work to be done, Susan, to make sure that that the movement and your efforts are coordinated. There's also, Steve has reached out to there's a few other networks in Kenya with similar philosophies. I would think that you could have like regular updates in your monthly meetings to inform people of what the other networks are doing and opportunities for coordinated action. But it's, I know that there's this Alliance for Communities that Kennedy at Shafco has created, and there's other networks. And there's also, I know, in our launching, we had a large participation from the bilaterals who are increasingly interested in working with community-led development. So I think there's just, I think you make a really good point. And Steve, I'm sure you and Nancy and the whole team there can find ways to keep everyone informed of opportunities for this kind of collective action.
Most definitely, John. Most definitely, John. And I think that is a good point that Susan has raised. And I think that we might need to maybe have a one-on-one with her and the rest of the team to just see how best we can collaborate, because MCLD is about collaboration for the betterment of the lives of the people that we seek to work with, Yeah, so we will surely be in touch with Susan and the KCDF team to find those points of collaboration.
Yeah, so absolutely. And Bernard is asking a similar question on partnership model, if we have any model in place. Thank you very much, Bernard, for that question.
So do you want to expand on that question in terms of partnership models? You mean examples of how to form and get funded consortiums, or what? Could Ben say a little more about the question?
Hello, Tim. How are you?
Hello, Bernard. Nice to meet you. I've spoken with your colleagues. It's wonderful to get to meet you in person.
Yeah. Thank you very much, John. You guys are doing an enormous job. And I'm Bernard from with my own Two Hands Foundation. I'm the East African Regional Director. Our foundation deals with sustainable agriculture, water independence, and educational opportunities. Why I am asking this model of partnership is we're already implementing this in East Africa. We look for like-minded partners that will want to collaborate with us, that will want to fundraise on our platform so that we can champion a common agenda. And this definitely requires a structure of understanding of both parties. So this is basically why I'm asking if we have this in place.
Well, I think each country is going to have to do that themselves, and Kenya doesn't have that yet. I know Anne can speak to a couple of examples of other national chapters. Anne, are you still with us?
Yes, I am here. And thanks, that's a great question, and I'm really enjoying this conversation. Each chapter has really created its own way of forming partnerships because each chapter is self-directed and self-organized. So depending on what works best for your chapter, that's the way you can move forward. To give an example from Benin, the Benin chapter ended up collaborating with the Ministry of Health on some COVID posters during the pandemic. It started with comments on one poster, creating another poster, and then the Ministry of Health endorsed the chapter's poster and wrote a letter of recommendation for the chapter as a worthwhile organization. And then the chapter was invited to be on the National COVID Task Force. And then the chapter was also able to take that letter to the Ministry of Decentralization and several of the global multinationals. And with that letter, that sort of introduction letter, they were able to get meetings with all kinds of government agencies. And then they additionally reached out to, in Benin, they have a national association of local governments. So they reached out to that national association as they were connected with them by the Ministry of Decentralization, and now they're partnering with them. They're also partnering with the Department of Nutrition at the university around some of the food systems work. And they're also partnering with potentially the World Food Program and several other major stakeholders. So the idea is that depending on the thematic areas that the chapter wants to focus on, you kind of build it one step at a time based on the context and based on partnership development skills. And usually starting with one specific sort of ask or area of collaboration. Now, the one other issue is the question of whether or not the chapter is registered. The chapter in Benin is not registered as an organization, but still is able to do all of this work. However, in the future, they're considering registering as an organization so that they can take some of the partnerships to a different level. So let me stop there, but I hope that's a helpful example.
Thanks, Anne. Let me add one thing. We had Kenya is Anne was mentioning the Ministry of Decentralization, and certainly with the Council of Governors, the counties, when we were meeting with the governor of McWinney County during the launching in 2019, he proposed that members of the movement really map their presence collectively and be able to meet collectively at the county level with the county government. He said, I can't talk to 1,000 community-based organizations, but if the movement can bring people together at the county level, and I know that there was some discussion of maybe doing this kind of partnerships in initial 3 counties or something like that. I also said that question, what county would you want to and be able to effectively work with county governments? But forming a partnership with county government could be a unique model that Kenya is able to pioneer.
Yeah, thank you very much, John and Anne. Actually, on that note, there's someone who is asking about our overall goal, and are we only focused in Makueni County, which is no, the CLD is spread out to different counties. But if I can remember, we had key priorities. We had prioritized certain counties that we wanted to roll out. Perhaps, Steve, you could talk about that as you give an overview about the Kenyan chapter, which actually our goal aligns to the global MCLD goal. And we have a website, which Stephen can also talk about, and perhaps just share the link for, further details. Over to you, Steve.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Nancy. And yes, I'll be pasting the website here, on the chat box in a short while. And I think, those have been very, very great questions. And we really hope to work together and see how best we can continue deepening the objectives and goals of CLD across the country. I think with that, and given that we have about 8 minutes to go, sorry, I would like to, if there isn't any additional question or comments.
Oh, there's one.
There are actually, sorry, yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, please go ahead, Nancy. Yes, I saw other questions in there.
Yes, they are actually, because Moses and Frida, they're asking about committees. And I remember we had a discussion about that, Stephen. So maybe you can talk about that, or Carol, or Daisy, yeah.
Carol.
Okay. Hi everyone, once again. It's good to see all of us here. I know we've we fell off the cracks at some point, but I think this is it's a good opportunity to reconnect and continue from where we started. And thank you once again. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Nancy, for keeping the fire going, and Peter Nope. Thank you so much. One of the things that I remember in the a meeting we had, that is a while back, we had put up some minutes on the committees, and I think we had a little write-up on what we had planned to do, and some of the questions that are being asked on this forum may have been addressed during those times. And what I may do, I have actually pulled out one of the minutes, a copy of one of the minutes of the meeting that we had. I'll reshare it with Steve, and we can probably pull out some of those comments that are coming out, that are being addressed, that were probably addressed in that meeting, so that we don't reinvent the wheel. We just be picking up the pieces from where we left, and roping in people as they come in, so that we just have a continuation of the discussion, because a lot was put in place, a lot was discussed. Various organizations who are present, they brought in so much, so that we don't lose those trail of thoughts, but at the same time, just build on it as people are coming in with new ideas. That's all I'd like to give input on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Steve, do you want to add anything?
Not really, but I think top of my head, I think we had a committee on communications and advocacy. I think we had another one on research, collaborative research. And like Carol said, maybe we could look at what we had in place, when we were starting, and just see how best we can adopt what we can adopt going forward. I think we don't need to really reinvent the wheel, as it were.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve and Carol. Well, I think there's a last question here from Frida, and she's asking if there's a forum to learn from country chapters. What are they achieving? What can we learn from them? And I remember in one of our initial meetings, we had a presentation from other countries that are, that have actually embraced MCLD. I don't know whether John can share the presentation at some point.
Sure, or I know Anne has a monthly call. Anne, do you want to talk about your leadership calls?
Sure, and thanks for that question. We have a monthly leadership call that goes across all the chapters, and anyone is welcome to participate in that call if they're interested in leadership and they're interested in a slightly smaller meeting that works across all the chapters. We do find that a lot of domestic civil society organizations aren't always up to date on what is going on in other countries. So it's a great chance for cross-country collaboration among peers, and also a really amazing group of people that attends those meetings. So if you are interested in those meetings, you could let me know and I can add you to the invitation. We also have a National Chapters 2020 report that goes into some detail about what the other national chapters have done. And also anyone is welcome to schedule a meeting with me if you would like, because I have some additional material that could be useful. Some of it which is added as an appendix to the national chapter's 2020 report. So if you look at that 2020 report and go all the way to the end, you'll find some of that material as well.
Thank you, Anne. I can see a hand. Philip, kindly unmute. Philip Mbogo, you've raised a hand.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see John. I've been able to follow some of the meetings online. But what I wanted to say, I was a bit concerned that we never really moved after the launch. And I think it's because we did not set up the structures for sustaining such a movement in Kenya. So I would propose that even I'm really excited. I didn't have this link. I actually came across Peter Njuguna, my colleague, and I thought I had a familiar voice. So I asked him what meeting that was. And that's how I found myself here at the last minute. But I think it would be very important for us to determine the structure on which the movement will run. And for me, the most important thing is what's the top organ, what's that committee that steers the movement? And then the second one would be who hosts the movement. And once we have that, then the rest should be able to flow. Sorry, I came in a bit late. I don't know whether that was addressed.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. Well, we had discussed about holding monthly meetings the last Thursday of the month. So I guess we'll have such conversations. Perhaps we could spare the next meeting for that. Yeah, and I've seen a couple of us saying that it's okay. They are very much okay with Thursday. So we'd also want to hear from the rest of us if Thursday would work well with us. And because of time, there could be other questions, but just feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to Stephen directly. So over to you, Stephen, for the closing remarks.
Thanks very much, Nancy, for facilitating that session. I mean, it's been really engaging and a lot of insights shared there. I think I'll now hand it over to Bernard to give some closing remarks. But before I get to that, I think we seem to be in agreement that we will be holding our monthly meetings on Thursday around this time. I don't see any dissenting opinion on the chat box. So I want to assume that that's the case. But if you have any dissenting opinion, please feel free to share, as it were. So over to you, Bernard.
Thank you very much, Steve. I want to say a very big thank you to the whole team. This is a wonderful movement, like empowering communities is a very important aspect of development, especially in charity or organizations that are actually geared towards a societal impact. I want to say thank you to John for this particular initiative and all the members. From the group, I see we have a lot to leverage on. Actually, we have so much synergies that if we really dedicate ourselves to this particular movement, we will achieve enormous effort and a very big societal impact. So thank you very much, team. And I would want, like in each and every session we have a deliberation and a kind of a follow-up items that we'll be working on so that as other members had echoed, we are on the same pace. and we keep the fire burning as a team, not just for the leaders, because this is our initiative and it has to be felt at the grassroots. So each one has to pick what to run with as a project. What I know, my experience in 10 years of capacitating communities is the more engagement you give to them, the better results you achieve in your projects. So partly like what we are doing right now. Right now I'm in some bush in Meru, a place called Igoji. And actually we are undertaking a training for stakeholders of a project so that the moment this project is delivered, they own the project and they are able to give reports so that it doesn't become a white elephant. So I think this is an initiative that we can really emphasize as a team and come up with possible strategies that will enhance these particular projects to be beneficial to the intended groups. So thank you very much, guys. And I hope with this movement, we are able to bring a bigger impact to our societies than what currently exists. Yes, Steve.
Steve, you're muted.
Oh yeah, I was going to say thank you very much for those profound remarks, and you know, you've just captured that, you know, this is a very great team, and if we can put our heads and knowledge and you know, expertise together, then we have no reason to not to, you know, achieve, you know, the goals and ideals of community-led development. John, I don't know whether you want to say something as we wrap up.
No, I just hope that as many of you as can will join us on our global call on the 30th. I'd love for someone from this call to be able to share the rebirth of this chapter on the global call on the 30th. We'll be, as I mentioned, focusing on the peace, humanitarian and development nexus, but we always hear from chapters around the world of what they're doing. So hope to see you all on the 30th, and we'll keep all of you regularly informed of what's happening globally as Steve keeps you informed of what's happening in Kenya.
Thank you very much. And please, if you haven't subscribed to our Kenyan mailing list, I've shared the link on the chat box. Feel free to do it. It takes less than a minute to do that, so that you are always updated on what's happening. Thank you very much all, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody. Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.